Okay, hi, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Nicole is joining us by joining us virtually. Let's see. Nicole, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I'm going to ask you if the meeting has been properly noticed.
It has.
Okay, let's establish a quorum, starting with a roll call vote. I'm going to begin with Joe.
Here.
Jen? Here. Yana? Here. John?
Here.
Nicole?
Here.
And I'm here as well. We have a quorum. Yana, would you go ahead and read our equity and mission statements to start our meeting off?
Sure. Our VASD equity statement reads, each student has access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in their education, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, ability, language, family background, or family income. Our results policy reads, each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as is?
So moved.
A motion from Jen. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Yana. All in favor of approving the agenda, signify with aye.
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 The agenda has been adopted. I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Clarity for the superintendent report.
Thanks, everybody, and happy Monday to you. Just a reminder, we're going to go back-to-back weeks, so we try to keep it reasonably light today. Knowing we're going to go again next week, and it'll be August already. Yeah, I said it, August. There's this.
Starting with hard truths right off the bat today.
There's no secrets in central office. That's been our new motto. There's always like these telltale signs when I think of myself being a pretty neutral and don't get worked up about things, but I think every time you see that first back to school commercial, whether it's JCP or not that I'm advertising anybody, but yep, it's time. Here we go again.
Or your school kids kit of school supplies arrived in the mail last week. That's pretty real too.
Well, I have the older ones now, so I just know the bill for school. So that's the big one. But superintendent's report, I digress. I apologize for that. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about today, you received a written copy of our organization structure update. You've been briefed on our structure and kind of our why behind it, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention in visual mode. As you look at the visual in front of you, there's a piece of it I don't think fully encompasses our direction. So this is a draft form at best for the direction of our organization. First, as we look at coherence and our really intentionality of removing silos in our organization, we really wanted to better align student services and academic services. If I am always our biggest critic, and as far as just making sure every word is right, and if I look at even the communication I sent today, I don't want anyone to think that student services is underneath academic services. Student services is aligned with academic services. And so I want to make sure that we use that language and understanding that language matters in everything that we do and say. And I was just reading it 50 times, and then I just don't want that to be anyone to think that it's lesser than. So we understand the strength of our student services staff and what that means when we are able to have true partnership in our teaching and learning, and what that would mean for our staff in a sense of belonging, and most importantly to our students and student outcomes. So we're pleased for this shift, and think it's going to really remove some of the barriers that have existed. Second, as you can see, and we talked about sending an attachment document that would really allow for everyone in our organization to know and understand the different positions of central office, because that's what matters most. Like, how do we effectively support our schools? And we're looking forward to that coming out. So there's easy contact of knowing who's responsible for what. We can be held accountable for those for our roles in the district, and you can know how you should receive support in our building coming through. And finally, as we think about OE2 and our succession plan, we really thought about the importance of having a true layer of beyond myself, who would be quote unquote second in command and third in command. So we changed the language there. And our assistant superintendent for business services and operations would be our deputy superintendent. Our assistant superintendent for academic services will be the third in command for OE2. And when I say the visualization is off, I want to make sure that our assistant superintendent is lifted up higher there. So we'll make sure we get that fixed in the visual that goes out permanently. Otherwise, you can see the direct reports to me. All of us are rightfully so under the direction of our Board of Education, and we are thankful for that continued leadership. For clarification, you can see to the right, you see we have legal counsel. We clearly marked that as external. We still, at this point, partner with an outside agency to get legal support in our organization, but it is a monetary investment, so we felt like it needed to be a part of the org chart so people understand that we do receive legal support. Any questions?
When you're talking about sharing like the better version of this visual, or just do you have any more detail to share about how and when and just what that looks like?
Sure do.
Okay.
I think we have this thing about wanting things to be perfect, so we actually have it, but we are, and maybe it's me, I'm getting glares from my team up there that I really wanted to fully encompass our systems way of thinking and what parts of our organization that we want to that each person is responsible for doing. And in essence, tells a story. It's hard to tell a story in a graphic. And so, yes, I kind of put a very hard timeline of Wednesday, but I wanted to be right. So it may still be in draft form, but Wednesday we get eyes on what we're trying to put in front of staff. Right. The last thing we want to do is put something out there and have to retract it because it didn't hit the mark. And so I would say Wednesday is our tentative timeline, but if not, it means that we just want to make sure that it's ready for public view.
Sure. Thank you for the thoughtfulness.
Absolutely. All right. Here's my pirate star here. So as you heard in our documentation, we really wanted to guide our organization in a coherent fashion towards what we're calling our North Star. And our North Star is a goal that everyone in our organization is working towards and striving for. So we're, you should think about how we're thinking about professional development, how we're enhancing the development of our instructional leaders, a common goal that every parent, staff member, student knows that we're trying to achieve. It resonates here in this newly established North Star. We're very thankful of the coherent process and the collaborative process that we went through to get to this. Multiple hours of not just wordsmithing, but it's just in meaning of what we're trying to accomplish. So our final product is that our North Star is to prepare, all learners to thrive in a diverse global society. Student staff will utilize the power of collaboration to center disciplinary literacy across every learning environment. So it's a twofold. One is the disciplinary literacy as the academic focus. Also, as we think about last year and the time from healing, just because we turn the calendar over doesn't mean everybody's healed now, and it doesn't work that way. And so we what are the means and the method of continuing the healing process, and we really wanted to dig into intentional collaboration as that conduit to continue the healing process. So that's where you see the power of collaboration, where we can all focus together. We find value in being able to learn and develop with peers. And so that encompasses both the culture of our system as well as the academic goal of disciplinary literacy in one. So we look forward to sharing this with our our full staff at the August welcome back, and digging into the work very deeply next week already at the Leadership Institute, because it is August and we're going. All right.
Dr. Clarity, I have a quick question on the North
thing.
Star. Could
Uh-huh.
you kind of explain how the North Star aligns, or is a take on, or is a detail lower, or whatnot, regarding our results policies and our mega result mission, and how those two things complement each other or are maybe entirely different from each other?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So our North Star, I would see as our very key strategy within our results policy. We thought of, as we think about what we want all of our staff to be focused on and for, the results will be the student outcomes that you will see as a board. The universal strategy will be our focus on disciplinary literacy as a way to allow for those results to come to life.
Thank you.
You okay there, Nicole?
I am. Sorry. That was great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So the next slide is one in my own dreams, I had hoped I'd never put in front of you again, but it's just not the case. We came together as a cohort of Dane County superintendents again on Friday, and received the news, as most of you did, that Dane County returned to a high risk level again for COVID. So that places us in a position that we needed to revamp our teams and bring back our medical team again to begin to look at data and do some decision making of how we will open the year. Right now, there's I don't want to get into masking and not masking and all this stuff. I'm not going there. Right? I don't have brain space for it. But I do want to think about some immediate occasions like the convocation, where we would have all of our staff together in potentially one space, and what that would mean for opening the school year. And so right now we're just in thinking mode of plan A, B, and C. If the numbers stay, that it may not be the best decision to have every staff member in the same space at one time, but we will keep you updated. So this is just more of a FYI. Again, no surprises, no secrets from central office, as well as just our intentionality of bringing our teams back together and continuing a partnership with our medical advisors to really make some informed decisions around opening the school year safely as possible. Questions there?
Have there been any concerns that have arisen with summer school currently happening? I know, sort of in the midst of all of this.
No. Right now, this is the kind of decision making behind convocation really resonates from the overabundance of caution of enough staff members to possibly not being able to effectively open school. We have not had breakouts or huge cases in summer school, so that's been good. So it may be the changing of location, maybe going outside. You may be asking our staff to mask in that 1 day space together. We're talking about maybe 2 or 3 hours of contact time. So it's more of an FYI of thinking about if the data stays the same or if it goes back down, and that we unfortunately have not been able just to push go to the side and look at that state of normalcy. All right. As you've heard me mention a couple of times, August already, and August means that we are delighted to have our leaders back with us to engage in the Leadership Institute. You see many in front of you are our team of directors and assistant soups that are really heavily engaged in deep learning and on our goal towards coherence. Remember, our focus is to allow our instructional leaders to be able to do their best work and practice, all in supporting continuous improvement. We are really excited that in the next year of the continuous improvement process that we are going to go into deep work with school-based leadership teams, and many of those folks will begin to be part of that leadership institute, especially I believe days 3 and 4. Is that correct? 3 and 4 of the of our welcome back. So we'll have our building leaders and members of the SBLT beginning to join to begin to collectively think about how we're going to improve schools, as well as that joint effort towards our collective North Star. And I tease that, it's August already, but this is when the work gets really, really exciting. We can put together calendars and all that's fun, but when you get in front of our instructional leaders, you get in front of our SBLTs and you get to teach again and get to teach together. That's when, the smiles come back, and it's why we sign up for this. It's a great moment. And I don't think anyone in the space of mind, if I say, if you just have time and you want to see great, great learning happening together in collective fast, stick your head in there. Actually it's here. Yeah. Stick your head in here, and you're going to see a lot of engagement, a lot of excitement, because we're working towards student outcomes. And when you have adults collectively working together towards student outcomes, it doesn't feel like work at that time. And we're going to use this space to build a team, and you're always welcome. If there's more than 4 of you, just let me know so I can post. But otherwise, just stick your head in. It's fine.
Well, now that we know that it's August, we're trying to get as much summer as
I
possible.
All right. Anything before we transition over into results policies? Anything from the open presentation and the superintendent's report? Just want to give you kind of a briefing of what's been going on and some of the decisions that are headed forward. And now we will go into results. But before I transition to Dr. Hawkins, is there anything that I may have missed or questions from the previous slides?
Any questions from the board?
All right, Dr. Hawkins. Ms. Karen Scott-Glover.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Just really quick.
Oh.
As you open up, can you talk to the board really quick about Karen's new title and responsibilities? As it wasn't listed on because we did the higher level of the org chart, but Karen's role is so crucial I don't want to put any pressure, it's crucial. It is the key to our success. And we have a phenomenal leader that's going to guide us in our curricular work and our teaching. So we're excited to have there, but if you want to introduce the new title and role, please.
Absolutely. So tonight we have Karen Stocks-Glover. She is the Director of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation. And so last year she served as our Director of Secondary Education. However, she comes to us prior to last year with a wealth of knowledge and experience. So she spent a great deal of time developing Capitol High, where she was instrumental in developing a program from the ground up. But her real talents, I shouldn't say her real talents, but in addition to doing all of that, her real talents lie with curriculum and instruction. And so this last year, as we have all dug into developing our results policies, what we realize is that we have some opportunities to align our curriculum, to develop curriculum so that our teachers don't have to spend time developing curriculum, and that we can take that load off their backs and then vet it, produce it, align it. And so that work will be led by Karen Stocks-Glover. And I will tell you, she has been an amazing an amazing member of our team, and much of the work that you all will see and learn more about in the years to come, actually in the months to come, textbook adoption, aligning all of our programs will be the work of Karen Stocks Glover and the team that she employs. Would you like to add something else? Did I miss something?
So it's teaching, learning, and innovation.
Teaching, learning, innovation.
Very exciting.
She'll also directly support our coaches. So we have CLSs, curriculum learning specialists. We have ETCs. So she'll work jointly with Jason, Mr. Rubo. Our ETCs, our curriculum learning specialists, our language and literacy equity specialists. So we're gonna pull all of those folks together. All of those individuals have had a supporting role in our buildings, but we're going to pull them together and really use them to be instrumental in coaching and supporting our teachers. So when we think about our theories of action, so we develop those, and then we further develop our continuous improvement plan, but you can't push it and move it without our teachers, and we need our coaches to help our teachers improve. So she is going to work directly with that team to help really move and improve student outcomes. So that being said, we'll jump into our results policy. Tonight, we have 4 policies that we're going to share with you all. And so for the sake of not being redundant, where language is the same or similar, we'll call that out, but we won't read it because much of it is very similar from one policy to the next. But tonight, we're going to introduce world language, creative and performing arts, health and physical education, and technologically fluent. And so we'll open by saying each student will be literate and numerate, able to achieve their personalized goals. Accordingly, each student will achieve at individually and appropriately challenging levels and acquire academic competencies in the following disciplines that I just shared with you. So Mrs. Karen Stocks Glover is going to share with you all world languages and creative and performing arts. And then I will talk to you all about health and physical education, and then technologically fluent policies.
So for our world languages policy, in the superintendent's interpretation of world languages, we want to call it specifically that the Board of Education expects that our district will prepare students to compete in a global economy by teaching a second language and develop skills in communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities to apply second language knowledge beyond the instructional setting. The interpretation of terms is similar to those that we've seen in other results policies, and an indicator that we will be identifying tonight is the STAMP assessment. Our definition of terms is also similar to what you have seen in other results policies. And specifically, our education term tonight is world languages, which is defined as more than 350 languages, including American Sign Language, spoken in homes, schools, workplaces, and community spaces across the United States. So for our results policy, indicator number 1 applies specifically to world languages taught at the high school. So we are specifically focusing on world language in grades 9 through 12. The first is to increase the percentage of students enrolled in world language courses and in advanced level courses. And advanced level courses are defined as those that are dual credit and AP courses. So for example, we have dual credit courses in French, German, and Spanish, as well as an AP course in Spanish. Indicator 1A is to increase the percentage of focus group students enrolled in those world language courses and in advanced level courses. Indicator 2 is increasing the percentage of students attaining proficiency in a world language as evidenced on the STAMP assessment. The STAMP assessment is an online progress monitoring assessment aligned to what are known as the ACTFL guidelines. And ACTFL stands for American Council of Teaching of Foreign Languages. And that assessment is aligned to skills in or proficiencies in reading, writing, speaking, listening, viewing and visual representation. And so we are looking at proficiency on the continuum in the actual stamp alignment at the intermediate level. So again, we're looking for increasing the percentage of students attaining proficiency in the world language as evidenced on the stamp assessment. And 2A, increasing the percentage of focused students attaining proficiency in the world language as evidenced on the stamp assessment. Indicator 3 is increasing the percentage of students earning the seal of biliteracy. And 3A, increasing the percentage of focus group students earning the seal of biliteracy. So what questions do you all have related to indicator 2.2.2?
I have a question about the stamp assessment in terms of with the indicators that involve that assessment. Does every student involved in world languages take that? Or I'm trying to clarify maybe pieces that I heard with intermediate. Could you just say again, maybe which students would actually take that
Yeah,
assessment?
so not currently, not all of our world language courses use the stamp assessment, but that was a goal that was set forth by the
Okay.
academic services team moving forward.
Okay.
So we are looking to use the stamp assessment more universally at the high school level in our world languages. The level of proficiency is right now for us at that level of intermediate. So the levels in the stamp assessment are specifically novice to intermediate to advanced to superior to distinguished. And intermediate, and there are levels within that. So we are looking for growth towards intermediate level for our students on the stamp assessment. Again, this would be an opportunity for us to set that baseline moving forward as we apply the stamp more universally and as we get a better understanding of what those assessment levels entail us.
So can I just ask a follow-up to that? I'm a little bit familiar with STAMP from having a student in the two-way immersion program. So am I right that STAMP's also taken by middle school students? I know my middle school student took it because of two-way immersion at the 8th grade level, but it's also offered at the international school as well.
That is my understanding.
And
as
so
well.
that testing would continue at lower grade levels below like the 9 through 12 grade band.
Correct. In
And-
those two immersion programs.
Okay, and does that factor into this in terms of the percentage of students, or are you just the indicators only for high school?
Indicators are only for world language, high school world language courses.
Okay, so not for students in those other programs who would have had earlier, exposure to foreign language. Okay. And it's also not used with like, when someone is an English language learner and they come in, there's other assessments that they take.
That
correct?
would be the access. So
Right.
access is similar in nature to the proficiencies the skills proficiencies that are being assessed. But the access would be our primary source.
Okay. So this is specifically for 9 through 12 world languages, not the students in those other programs. So when those students come up to the 9 to 12 grade band, they would not be included in these indicator numbers, correct?
If they continue to be enrolled in those world language courses and are assessed in the stamp assessment in those world language courses, their data would be included.
Okay, so once they hit the high school juncture, then they become part of that pool of that you're measuring and goes toward this indicator.
Yes, that is our plan.
Okay. I think that helps clarify it. So would stamp be given as early? So let's say someone took an 8th grade world language like Spanish, for example, and then they enter high school, would they begin taking stamp right away, even though they're only like in the 2nd year of Spanish? Or are you thinking they have to hit a certain level before they begin the stamp
No,
testing?
we would want to determine if stamp would be used annually as an
Okay.
annual assessment. And right now that is our vision, that it would be that because it is a progressive assessment, progressive skills over time, it would be something that students would take annually.
Okay, no matter what level they're at that point in their high
Correct.
school career.
Correct.
Okay.
It's very specific to measuring the learner's growth over time.
Okay. And in multiple languages, so it could be that they're taking it for Spanish, but it could be that they're taking it for Mandarin. It could
Yes.
apply in
Yes,
different
It
situations.
is available in a variety of languages. And so the Romance languages that we currently teach, as well as Mandarin, there is availability for all of those languages.
Okay. So I have a question about, I think I hear Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole.
No, that's
I'll let you
okay.
go.
Thank you, Yana. So I have a quick question just on, I know this is for 9th through 12th grade, but clearly we wrote this goal with the idea of all students accomplishing kind of their personal goals as it relates to language. And we know the earlier a student starts to learn language, the better they're able to retain it as they continue. So my question is, what, if anything, are we doing to have any measurements around like our ability to offer language at earlier levels, or kids who are learning languages at earlier levels retaining it? I guess I'm a little caught off guard by all of the indicators just being focused on high school.
So currently STAMP is used with students who are enrolled in two-way immersion programs at all grade levels. So we have been using it in that way. One of the reasons for us to focus on high school specifically was the opportunity that some students take initially for the first time to take that elective in world language when they enter high school. And also the fact that some students, having taken maybe German as an 8th grader, determine that they actually want to take Spanish when they come to high school. So it seemed like a good transition point for us to try to gather more comprehensive data on our students' progress in world languages. We certainly want to continue to support and encourage our students to engage in world language instruction in middle school, and are obviously very proud of our TWEET programs as well. But that transition to high school seemed like a good transition point to make this decision about assessing growth in the languages over time.
As I'm hearing some of the questions, Board, I think I'm hearing some interchangeability between tweet and world language are not the same. And so I want to make sure that we're talking about the language and what that means, and not our immersion program, which is a completely different aspect of this policy. Is not even in this policy. It's not a part of it whatsoever.
So looking at indicator 1 and 1A, excuse me. So for our advanced level courses, I am assuming that there are some type of prerequisites that students would need to take before they got to that level. So I'm just curious about the rationale with putting the students enrolled in world languages classes and the advanced level classes together instead of splitting those out to see who's in the world language classes and then who's in the advanced classes.
Yeah, I think that because the progression for a student coming into high school would be to encourage them to take that 3rd year when the advanced level courses begin. That was the reason for that specific indicator. But also just looking at the world language enrollment overall, I can see that there is perhaps a need to tease this two out.
So again, I'm just trying to follow up here. And I understand trying to make the distinction between world language and then the immersion programs like the international school and the two-way immersion program. However, when they hit high school, then if those, let's say a TWE student is taking one of those advanced, either dual credit, which is like a Spanish 5 or an AP Spanish, are you saying you're excluding that enrollment from this number, or you are including those TWE students? Because I know those students may reach like an AP Spanish level class as early as like sophomore year in high school.
Right.
So
would be including any student enrolled in advanced level course, no matter their current grade level.
okay, so even if it's like a freshman or sophomore who came from the TWE program and is hitting that capstone at an earlier point, that would still be included here and increasing.
Correct.
So naturally, I'm just thinking because the first cohort's hitting high school this coming fall, obviously that number of students advancing or taking advanced classes, that's going to impact that. But we're talking about overall growth as well among students who maybe started world language in 8th grade or in high school.
Right.
Okay.
So some of my questions been answered. So don't feel like you have to repeat anything. It seems like the STAMP assessment is something that we use for languages other than the 3 languages that we currently offer advanced programming in.
Correct.
So there was mention earlier that I wanted to follow on around the indicators that did you guys discuss or feel the need for any sort of indicator around potential new offerings in terms of languages as a way to expand some of these? And I don't want to tread into territory around like, what are we offering sort of question, but that would be one of the questions I'd have about getting towards some of, like, we want to increase enrollment, but if we're only offering 3 languages, and I know, particularly for our students who are in the international school, it's tricky to keep with their Mandarin. And I know we have some sign language offerings that don't necessarily reach the level of advanced programming yet. But to come back to my question, was there any discussion around a potential indicator for expanding options? That's the first question. The second question, which is much shorter, is when you talked earlier about teasing things out, do you guys in the administration have a way of looking at students K through 12 to see where we may be having students losing interest or falling off along the way? And is that part of this discussion around indicators as well, or not quite here?
So I'll try to answer those questions. And if I miss something, just come back around to me. So currently at the high school, we offer American Sign Language, French, German, Mandarin, and Spanish. Those are the languages that we currently offer. And all of those have some version of an advanced course level. And it could be dual credit, it could be an AP. In the case of American Sign Language, it would actually be, we would consider it advanced if a student took the 3rd year of American Sign Language, because anything beyond 2 years of a world language is considered advanced. So that's one question. We did not consider whether or not we would introduce new languages for instruction at this point in time. And then the second question, I think, was, I apologize, Jonathan.
Tracking students K through
Tracking
12.
students. We don't, not that I am aware of, we don't currently have a specific process for doing that, but we can certainly look to that transition point between middle school and high school as a key indicator of that sort of resiliency and commitment to the study of world languages.
Perfect, thanks.
When do students typically get a seal of biliteracy?
Typically when they have studied 4 years at the high school level, is my understanding.
Okay.
Unless we're talking about students who've been in a TWE program that have had prior intensive instruction, they may achieve that sooner.
Okay.
But typically it's a senior year. We'll go ahead and move on then.
So this is a little unique because we're gonna go to a completely different process. So do you want a pause discussion back or go through all of them?
I would ask the board, make sure that they ask all of their clarifying questions at each juncture, and then I think we can then discuss them all as a package, at the end of the presentation. That would be, unless there's a strong opinion.
Meredith, are we going to vote on all of them independently? I'm assuming.
Independently, yes, but let's make sure we get
Wonderful.
all of our questions, for administration now at each junction, and we'll kind of take them all. As a
Makes
package for the
sense.
board discussion. Unless there's any other.
I feel like the language is sufficiently similar, even though there are different areas that we can probably manage that.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I just offer one more wondering that I think applies to world language? Language is similar results policy wise. And you don't need to necessarily answer this right now, but it's just a wondering in my mind about how these indicators for world language may be impacted by our program progression. So I'm just looking at the indicators where we're looking at growth in enrollment in advanced courses and growth in stamp assessment results of proficiency intermediate or greater, and wondering, because there's naturally programs like the TWE program, which are reaching the high school level, are you going to have a baseline that precedes their going up to that level and then measure the growth after that? Or how are we going to take into account that natural increase that's going to occur because that program is aging up? And you don't necessarily have to answer that, but it's just in my mind as a wondering, since that cohort's moving, there's an obvious bump up that's not necessarily a result of something we've done in the moment, but just because the program progression is going to age up and those students are going to reach the scale of biliteracy much earlier, an AP Spanish class much earlier. And from my knowledge, there's already eighth graders who are higher than an intermediate level on stamp. So they've already reached that prior to their entry into high school. So I'm just wondering that as a TWE parent, like how we measure growth and with that in mind.
Definitely take that forward. Thank you for that.
Go ahead to the creative and performing arts is the next one.
So our next results policy is creative and performing arts. Again, we are looking at the superintendent interpretation of creative and performing arts, specifically the language that states the Board of Education expects all students will access a variety of creative and performing arts courses and co-curricular experiences for the continued development of students' fine arts skills and knowledge, as well as exploration of college and career interest in the arts. The interpretation of terms is standard to our results policies thus far. The indicators that we'll be looking at are creative and performing arts course enrollment. Definition of terms is standard to our results policy thus far. And for our education terms, we are defining co-curricular as the extension of the formal learning experience in a course or academic program, and creative and performing arts as specifically art and design, dance, media arts, music, and theater. Our indicators for this results policy are first increasing the percentage of students enrolled in creative and performing arts courses, and indicator 1A, increasing the percentage of focus group students enrolled in creative and performing arts courses.
So right now, oh, sorry.
Nope,
Jen.
go ahead.
Right now, we don't have baseline data for this stuff, right? So this is, we're checking, we're getting there. Okay, the capacity building. All right, got it.
And
That's my question.
yeah, and given that, I'm just curious with that neither indicator though mentions anything from the co-curricular frame. So if that's just, again, from a capacity standpoint of trying to focus on one area, okay, then, right. Thanks.
Focusing on course enrollment
Mhm,
and increase in that elective option for students.
mhm.
To that end, the definition of co-curricular, do you, I'm trying to imagine if a course or academic program encompasses everything that we mean by co-curricular. Do you guys assume that it does, like in terms of like after school programming or clubs or activity-based groups in school that might not necessarily be a course? Then is that considered an academic program broadly defined? How does that work in your mind?
So we're thinking of co-curricular as that opportunity for students in performing arts to be part of a band program or a jazz ensemble.
So you would not be including like any sort of after school or club type activities. Those would be more,
That would be more extracurricular.
yeah. So I would wonder if we want to find a way of measuring student involvement, particularly at the high school level, in extracurricular activities. And that maybe that's a broader question than this results policy. though it seems to be involved here, as a way of seeing where our students are engaged, not just in their academic coursework, but just as a part of the community more broadly.
I think that's part of R4.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
that's
that lives
maybe
somewhere else.
Captured, you know, in R4, I'd be captured. There's different places where I think that that type of data would be, you know, being a constructive participant in their community, school, local community, country, world. So that may be, I think that's really, I know that there's a conversation we had when.
Right. It was feeling familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When you said it, I was like, I think that lives somewhere else. I don't know where, but I think we talked about that. to
Yeah.
some
So
capacity.
then this is strictly about coursework.
Enrollment in courses. Yes.
Any other questions from the board on this one? Hearing none. We can move to health and physical education.
Health and physical education. So today we're going to continue and results policy around health and physical education states the Board of Education values student learning and achievement that meets or exceeds grade level standards as well as goal setting as a cornerstone of teaching and learning. The Board of Education expects all students will access a variety of developmentally appropriate, sequentially designed physical education courses and co-curricular experiences for the continued development of students' physical literacy, as well as health and safety skills and knowledge. So the interpretation of terms is the same as in the previous two results policies. And the indicator for this policy will be physical education and health course enrollment. The definition of terms is also the same. Education terms used for this policy include physical education. And so physical education provides students with a planned sequential K-12 standards-based program of curricula and instruction designed to develop motor skills, knowledge, and behaviors for active living, physical fitness, sportsmanship, self-efficacy, and emotional intelligence. Physical literacy includes physical education contributes to the development of physical literacy, which is designed as an individual having the motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge, and understanding to value and take responsibility for purposeful engagement in physical activity for the development of the whole person throughout their lifespan. And then adaptive co-curricular includes extension of formal learning experiences in a course or academic program. And so the indicators for this policy include indicator 1, increasing percentage of students enrolled in elective health and physical education courses. 1A would be increasing the percentage of focused students enrolled in elective health and physical education courses. And then indicator 2 would be to build capacity by developing K-5 physical education instruction that meets DPI requirements. What questions do you all have?
Could you give an example of adaptive co-curricular in this?
I have that exact same question.
Adaptive co-curricular would include formulates. I'm thinking, I have the brain freeze. Can I come back to you?
Absolutely.
I don't want to misquote, so I would rather get you the correct
Yeah,
information and I'll come back to you.
absolutely. And you would think I could remember this. I mean, Graham just graduated not that long ago, but I can't think of.
Not
how
like
that would apply. But I'm sure there's some broad areas that I'm just not.
That's what I'm saying. Is it like the adaptive PE offering at the high school where
I'm
like
almost
students can
certain that it
mentor
is.
and, okay,
It is, but I wanted to.
I
make
know, and I don't want to
sure
just hone on
that
the
I just-
adaptive word, but that came to my
Exactly.
mind anyway.
Thank you. Questions
Could-
from the board?
I just have a question or just wondering about indicator two. I get the sense this is sort of like the conversation we had around science and social studies, where indicator two doesn't mean we don't have curriculum currently. However, maybe just a little bit more, even for the sake of anyone listening, of what you're looking to do differently than maybe what is currently happening in programming.
So currently, in some of our elementary schools where we have physical education teachers, they would provide a physical education curriculum for K-2 teachers to deliver as opposed to the actual physical education teacher. So as we add additional FTE, then we'll be able to have a physical education teacher that is providing those minutes for students. So we're in alignment. However, we want to make sure that we're utilizing and providing for our students the best experience possible. And sometimes due to some other constraints, we had to improvise. And so that was where our physical education teachers would provide lesson planning, the minutes were there. However, a K-2 teacher would deliver physical education instruction.
So then was the curriculum the same then, or is it different in all of our schools?
So we follow the standards.
Okay.
So the standards are the same.
Mhm.
What the instruction or the lesson would look like could vary
different.
from school
Okay.
to school, but we definitely are aligning to the physical education standards as given to us by DPI.
This definition of physical literacy, is this did that come from somewhere as a best practice, or did you guys hammer that out?
DPI.
It's interesting, isn't it, John?
Maybe I'm just narrowing 1 and 1A only to high school. Is that 6 through 12 or is it 9 through 12?
9 through 12, because again, when we think about our electives, all of our students have to take PE, but now we're specifically talking about the electives.
Thank you. That's I hit my head. Okay. So is there anything that we do to measure engagement or efficacy of programming for the middle school level, or is that something that we're focusing in into areas that are best monitoring?
At this time, we're looking specifically at our high schoolers. However, as we begin to develop and continue to look at monitoring our students, we could certainly look at middle school.
When do we offer our health ed type classes? Is that elementary?
When you say health,
Like
we teach health in elementary.
yeah.
I mean-
Well, good. I felt like there was, I'll circle back to you on that. So thank you.
I had a follow-up similar to that, Meredith. So I'm recalling that there is a health requirement that all the high school students take, right? Is there any other elective in health? I can't recall if there is anything else students can take besides the required one elective that they have to take for graduation requirement.
Without having the course perspective in
Okay.
front of me, I don't.
I mean, I
want-
know there's PE electives,
Exactly.
team sports and individual sports and fitness for life and all that. I just couldn't recall. So I was just curious about that when it says increasing the percentage enrolled. I know they all have to take at least that one health class as a graduation requirement, but I just wasn't sure if there's anything else they can take in health.
Any questions from the board?
So is the plan in future years to maybe dive into middle school a little bit?
Absolutely. However, in all frankness, yes, it is. But we're attacking high school areas that we know we can, as Karen said, that transition point. But yes, certainly as we build capacity, we could certainly focus on middle school.
Yeah, my concern would just be that given these definitions, particularly around physical literacy, there's so much going on at the middle school age level that aligns with that particular definition, that I would want to make sure that we're getting there.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing that
Go ahead,
I
Nicole, sorry.
found interesting, sorry, Meredith, I feel like I'm catching you all halfway through, so my apologies.
No, no,
The
no.
other thing I found interesting was the physical development and wellness is in R3, that 3.1.5. And so I'm trying to, just for board understanding, I'm trying to separate to the well-being part of physical development and wellness and trying to keep this focused on the more academic side of health and physical education. I don't know if that helps anybody else, but I could sense myself veering towards the well-being part. And I had to remind myself that is coming up as a subpoint of R3, in case that's helpful for anyone.
Thanks, Nicole. I think that is helpful. And I think Angie said is also helpful to remind, this is a capacity building, that we are going to be growing these as we build capacity. So where we're at right now, catching two different chunks of age group students is good. It's really ambitious, that's great. So I look forward to seeing how these grow, but again, we can't grow everything all at once and do it all well.
Well, and I think it's also helpful to remember that we are looking at curriculum and instruction in all grade levels, in all aspects, in all capacity. That may not show up in indicator and results policy, but that standards alignment needs to be there. That instructional model of the task needs to be there, and looking at unpacking current curriculum to see where we might see some gaps. So all of that is part of the work.
So just really, I've heard it 2 or 3 times now about middle school, and I understand, and rightfully so, it's recognized as I don't want to say gap, because I'm going to clarify why I don't see it as a gap. If we're developing the K-5 PE instruction that meets CPI requirements, that means we are not there yet. So what exactly would we be monitoring? We know that the curriculum built to go to ready for middle school is not yet a space of adequacy. We will have misinformation on the middle school level because we haven't developed the K-5 to fidelity yet. And so, in looking at it, we know there's a required coursework at the high school level, and really dig into the enrichment application, but we have to get K-5 right to have any expectation that the middle school experience will be proficient or better.
Okay, any other questions on health and physical education, or we're ready to move on to tech ed?
So R2.3 is technologically fluent. And so what this says is that the VASD Board of Education values demand to provide technology resources needed to create unique educational opportunities that will support students to safely access and navigate an increasingly diverse global society. The Board of Education expects all students to have access to digital opportunities that promote critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, and innovation. So our interpretation of terms are the same. Our definition of terms. So for this particular policy, we do have specific terms that are relevant to this policy: technologically fluent, to use and apply technology in an expressive way, effortlessly and smoothly, as one does with language, but also involves the development of knowledge within the information technology domain. Discerning consumers, showing careful judgment, especially in matters of accuracy and safety. The education terms for this policy include digital opportunities, technologies that lead to improvements in teaching and learning. So for example, coding, Project Lead the Way, anything where we're pulling in or giving students additional opportunities to access digital learning. The Department of Public Instruction Digital Learning Plan, Shared Vision for Learning, Shared Vision for Digital Learning in Wisconsin, and a way to organize key priorities and planning tools for the district. So the indicators that we are using, and this is a capacity building policy. So the indicator would state, increase availability of internet hotspots for families that do not have access at home, increasing percentage of students identifying access to digital opportunities as measured by the technology survey. And then indicator 3, establish digital learning opportunities for students and staff aligned with the Wisconsin DPI digital learning plan with professional development tailored towards our community's resources, needs, and again, as measured by the technology survey. What questions do you have?
So I have a question, and this might just be me missing something again, but historically, technology included education towards the trades as well. And I don't necessarily see that reflected in how technology is used here, where it's focused almost exclusively on digital learning, which originally caused me to think about, things like electrical engineering or building circuits or something. But then as I kind of read into it, I was wondering about where are any sort of indicators or definitions or anything around what was tech ed when I was younger, like, being an electrician, plumber, construction, anything like that. So I don't know if you guys could speak to that a little bit, or is that somewhere else again?
So specifically in this policy, it's not reflected. However, previously, the results policy on career and technical education would support that.
So I have a question. It seems like these first two indicators speak more to access than it does to technological fluency. And I mean, these are super important and I want us to be tracking these no matter what. But I guess I was just curious if this is really the right results policy for those indicators, or if there's something that's more on par to an issue like family access to internet or digital resources to support learning as opposed to technological fluency, which is what I thought this policy was speaking to. Yeah, I think the question was because I don't have my policy book in front of me, whether someone knows the results policy is better can say if there really is something that speaks to this. Because if there's not, I'm totally happy with this living here because it's very important that we track this.
I guess as a follow-up, Joe, to your question, I had a similar question where I get what you're saying about access. These indicators seem to just say, do we have the tools and does every student have access to those tools? But my question was, in the other results policies, it was very intentional that there was a measurement of focus group participation, either through enrollment or their, progress toward proficiency or whatever. And there didn't seem to be an indicator that talked about focus group progress with fluency, like you're describing, with technological fluency. So I had that same question, if that was considered, or is this, again, is that in the future? Is this capacity building? And then that would be in the future. I didn't know. So that's my wondering.
And so to your point, at this point, access is the entryway. It's
Okay.
the starting gate. So in order for students to even, or families, we at least have to ensure that all of our students have access to technology.
Okay.
And then does indicator 3 then get to the more, I don't want to say coursework, but like fluency piece of it? I mean, what do we have courses currently that offer fluency? I don't know what our.
We do. However, when we speak specifically to professional development, part of it would be ensuring that our teachers, they can provide what our students need. So from there, we'll then continue to expand our digital learning opportunities for our students.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So can I rephrase, Yana, what you surfaced, because I kind of did help just unpacking indicator 3 for whatever
It's a
reason.
lot.
So am I rephrasing it correctly so my brain is understanding that based on what survey data you get of students' sort of goals or interests with technology, that will then help inform the professional development?
Exactly.
My brain just put that all together. Thank you.
Thank you.
free could have tapped into a conversation I was just having with my son, how his generation has grown up being just kind of immersed in technology, and to educate them, we need more professional development from this side of the table to be at the same speed.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think there's, so I guess that resonated with me. I agree, access, we don't have a way of measuring access. Anything else beyond that is a measurement that has.
Maybe along those lines, I'm curious, like the survey kind of questions, because I really love the discerning consumers piece of this. You know, as you kind of commented to Meredith, when I was teaching way a long time ago, it was almost about teaching the technology. And I just like the students don't need us to teach them the tools. It's the usability of the tools. And so I'm just curious, you know, even how survey data measures like those kind of ways of technology. The consumer side, I think, is really fascinating. So just an add comment to that.
Joe, can you ask your question?
Yeah, if I can remember. I think it was when I was interpreting this policy, looking, I thought we were going to talk about the technological fluency of the students, and the first two indicators to me seem more like an assessment of their outside of school access to technology, which is a little bit a different thing, and it's very important. And so I do want it to be tracked in a results policy. I was just wondering if this was the right one, or if that indicator was more narrowly tailored to some other result policy.
It's not tailored to a result. I think it's one of memory here. Well, we 11 our instructional design is object access. That speaks to more what you're asking for. Does it apply somewhere else? But this is looking at ensuring that knowing the importance of technology fluency, are we ensuring that everyone even had access to begin with? So it doesn't align to another result as much as it aligns to another goal. Making sure that we are doing things in our system to provide resources to.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I just wanted to make sure that it was kind of tailored to this policy, but that explanation makes sense to me.
So are we moving these indicators then? I guess from what you just said. Okay, okay, all right.
We haven't done all yet.
I took Joe's question to be more about, and maybe I misunderstood entirely, but better to ask.
You'll
them.
probably ask a smarter question.
Well, I took it to be more about, you know, for the world languages, there's the stamp assessment that we can measure that learning. And there doesn't seem to be an assessment here yet. And I took your answer to be that once we've established access, that might be something that we're able to look towards having some sort of assessment that students are actually learning this, though it would be a tall task to assess that they are being discerning consumers as defined here. And I'm not sure I would want to do that. But yeah, I don't know. So that's my interpretation. But if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
I keep coming back to, we're at this first measurement is truly a capacity building time, and these indicators aren't going to remain static the next 5 years.
Right.
But for the initial few years as we kind of get into this, are these reasonable to help us to at least give us the baseline to see what we can measure or how the other, where there's gaps. I think this has to be here before anything else can be measured. And if we don't establish this, then our measurements that are built off of this are already flawed. That
Our
Yep.
reflection on technological fluency began with those prerequisites. So we have to have these prerequisites of access in order to get to technological fluency. And so it felt right to have them as indicators in a policy around technological.
And if we don't do it the way and cyclographs have indicated, struggle mightily to be in compliance with OE 11.6. Which is mind control student access to the utilization of electronic information. So this place, knowing that we haven't done all of that yet, I think it's too out, but this is where those situations where OE and results need to live.
Yeah.
And
And I keep coming back to, this is an establishment of a monitoring process that we can just jump to indicators that don't exist yet without having space
Mhm.
baselines. And I have to kind of keep reminding myself, we want to be like funny. We have to actually make sure we have. good stuff done. Are there other questions on this policy?
Not on this policy, but in this discussion around Joe's question in particular has me wondering back toward world languages. If we're talking about access here as a crucial first step, is there a significant difference between technological fluency in world languages to where talk about more access to different languages, different courses at high school level is also a necessary first step? Does that make sense? I'm wondering if those are analogous.
You could take it a little bit further, right? As far as,
So I get that what we're saying about you have to provide access to technology before you can start really building other indicators. And I'm wondering back on our conversation on world languages, if it's analogous to ask, do we similarly have to think about providing more access to world languages at the high school before we can think about increased enrollment numbers? Or is there a fundamental difference that would make that not a good comparison?
if my interpretation would be that we don't know what the barriers to access would be yet, whereas with the technology, we know not having a hotspot would be the barrier. So I'm not sure that we would be able to identify barriers. Is that,
well, I heard the first time you asked this in the world language one differently than I'm hearing now.
Oh,
I heard the first time you asked about world language as access to more languages, like more opportunities, like adding on to the offerings that we already have. So if we don't offer reading, if we don't offer that's what we're referring to. I heard you ask it different this time, but almost as in sections and opportunity for the languages that we already have on our schedule.
I think I meant both.
they're both good questions.
Very astute, yeah.
So in the first one, we wouldn't write access to a new language and an indicator because that would tie us to have to hire that person.
Right. Yeah.
Have to
Yep,
offer-
clearly.
offer that class. So that one, we would never put as an indicator because that becomes policy that we just made ourselves hire a new teacher. Nice try. But to the second one, I think you're asking, are we monitoring our selection, our offerings to make sure that we have the opportunity for access?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Good.
Wasn't as complex as yes. Yes, I want to make sure I heard that one from about 20, 30 minutes ago, just the same one as I heard. Okay.
But your clarification actually helped me figure out what I was saying a little better, so that's good.
And not to overcomplicate things, John, but I have another wondering that, I mean, these are philosophical questions too. We have to start somewhere. So I completely get with the technology. We have to start with access. And then it's, you know, sometimes we're impatient. We'd love to see more, you know, we'd love to jump into the future and say, okay, now with guaranteed access, we'd love to see growth in, I don't know, how many kids know how to code or something like that, but that's in the future and we have to be patient and see how the progression happens. But with world language, again, it's also a philosophical question of, would it go down? I mean, would we someday measure more than 9-12? Would we start to measure access at lower grade levels, increased access? Because I know what Nicole's question was earlier. So there's lots of philosophical wonderings we could have about that, but we have to start with capacity buildings. So I understand that there's choices to be made, and like with world language, you made the choice to do the 9-12 for sure. and that we're starting with the baseline or foundation. And if we could skip 5 years into the future, perhaps we'd see more, but we have to be patient, so.
Any other questions on technological fluency? Any other questions overall for our administrators? Time to get all your clarifying questions out of the way before we take. Okay. Well, hearing none, thank you very much. We appreciate
you.
it. Probably stay close just in case something
not
comes
going
up.
anywhere.
And
Can I
just-
just thank my team really quick?
Oh.
Yeah. So again, I just want to thank Dr. Hawkins, Mr. Karen Sullivan, and the team that you see again in front of you, the collaborative nature of our academic services department and bringing these to life. Sometimes I just want you to sit in and watch an academic services meeting and think about how student-centered it is, or you'll see how student-centered it is. And I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone on the team for your insight, your deep work, and always keeping students at the center. I know there's 1,000 ways we can go on these, but
Right.
you bring it back to students every time, and you put in some meaning of what we can actually do in the next couple of years, knowing that right, everybody, we'll all be together for a long period of time. Okay. All right. All right.
Thank you. And I know I think we're at that point where it's hard we're at the capacity building phase. And I want to really recognize though, what a critical amount of work that is done when we're at this first juncture, because it's laying the foundation for how we can grow. And it's really building a new system that we haven't operated in ever. And this is how we are going to drive results for our students. So I think it's, I think we all want to be like, okay, and then what about this and what about this and what about this? And I appreciate that you're keeping us, let's build a solid foundation. I think that's so critical, and we want to run, yeah, but if we were doing that, we wouldn't be building a solid foundation. We wouldn't have, meaningful results to be monitoring to ensure that our students really are achieving, a couple years down the road, we're getting data on this. So thank you. I think it's a really critical work, and it's our instinct is we do want to run ahead, and I'm glad that you are keeping us in a solid place. So, okay, so with that, again, the board's job is to make sure that the interpretations are reflecting the board's intent, and we are looking from the reasonableness standard. We're also making sure that the indicators are measurable and observable, and will help us determine whether progress has been made. And again, we're keeping in mind this is a largely a capacity building exercise at this point. So with that said, we've received and discussed the superintendent's interpretations and indicators for result policy R2. I'll accept a motion to approve the interpretation and indicators as presented so we can begin the board's discussion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Yana, and do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Jen. Okay, so the board can now discuss, we're gonna do all four at one time. Is there anyone who wants to jump off on this discussion? Do we want to start with one policy and go through them all, or do we want to just kind of take them as a package?
Well, I have a comment, not really a concern, but it's kind of them as a whole. I mean, I get on the capacity building, focusing on enrollment percentages is as good a place as any to start. But when we're dealing with multiple that all deal with elective enrollment percentages, it kind of feels like they're pulling against each other in some way. There's only so much elective capacity that you have at the high school level that I can envision it being very difficult to increase enrollment in all of them at the same time. So when we're looking at this whole picture of them together, it kind of seems difficult.
You'd have a great schedule.
We could just measure the declining enrollment in study halls.
So team, there's a particular rabbit hole of scheduling that we could go down. I want us to, that's coming, just not, we understand to meet these goals, we have to dig into scheduling and scheduling outcomes. So yes, you're right. I do not want to freak out our community right now with, hey, schedule change. Okay. Yeah. I mean, just so acknowledging you're absolutely right. And also our audience of two out there. I don't want to freak anybody out yet until we have a full schedule plan.
If you're comfortable with it, I am.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be freaked out.
I-
I appreciate pragmatic approach that Joe's taken.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's true. We have to build a schedule around us. That's correct.
We can save that discussion for another day.
We need more than one night of a board meeting
Alright.
to go there.
So, thank you for bringing that up. That's valid. Any conversations? Do we want to start with world language R2.2.2?
Sure.
I think the only
I-
thing with the world language one for me is just separating the world language courses and the advanced level courses. But I don't know that that needs a change other than like when you present the data. I just like to see them separate. Just curious. Just because I mean, there are prerequisites to get there. So if students are enrolling and then in year 2, we see that they drop off, of course, the world language, then the advanced world language then will be dropped off as well, right? Because they're no longer taking the advanced placement classes. I just want to see that data, but I don't think that you all need to do an extra work.
Along with that, like I take this to be results focused. So it's the advanced stuff for a reason, because that's a result of all of these prerequisites. But the question earlier is, more about like, are we tracking how many students are enrolled as they progress through so that we can see where we might be losing people along that train from all of these various channels, like middle schools, TWEED program, the international schools, the international school and that. But these seem entirely reasonable to me as a starting point.
I was just going to weigh in. I think this is the only one I'm still really struggling with, just because of the importance of introducing language at such an early age and the retention that is involved when introducing it at such an early age. So I don't know the solution because I am not an educational expert. But I will say I am currently questioning whether or not these are reasonable, given that they're only measuring high school and not measuring middle school. I think that's a little too late to start the measurement process. So I'm not entirely, I don't know this is entirely checking the box for me.
Just to add on to what Nicole said, I tend to agree a little bit with that. And especially because we're talking a lot about starting at a point of essentially data gathering to establish a baseline in terms of capacity building. So I'm wondering what the reason is that we don't want to gather that baseline at the middle school level in addition to high school level.
Can I speak to that for a second? Because I was over here chewing on that sort of issue a lot. I think if our indicators and our goal here was to be more process oriented, you guys are spot on. You need to build those processes. If you're looking at the results and saying we don't have enough students, you need to look back down the pipeline and say, what are the processes we need to introduce to get students started at a younger age, to keep them motivated through middle school. But for me, at least, this is about starting with results and the institutional work that we're trying to do in this first year is to say, okay, what do we have and is it increasing or not as far as the end of the line? And then, and I keep asking this about like, are we looking at where students are moving through the pipeline, where there are bottlenecks in that? That's part of the processes that I would expect the administration's doing as a function of their realm of work, to then come back in subsequent years, if need be, to say, okay, we might want an indicator around adding programming or doing something at a younger age, or something like they're tracking student involvement in languages at a younger age. But I don't know that it's going to be fair to start with that and then claim that we're not engaging in a process as a board. Does that make sense?
I agree, Jim.
Because yeah, Nicole, I'm speaking like Nicole. I was with
Sorry.
you in that I was very kind of concerned about that.
So if I can just make sure I'm understanding you, John. So you're okay with starting the results at the high school level because that will give us a glimpse. Let's say it's the STAMP assessment, what the proficiency levels are and whether that's an increasing number of students. That will give us a glimpse of the results that, somewhere down the line, operationally, staff might decide, okay, in order to move that needle, we do have to start earlier, or what's going to be our strategy. In other words, the strategies for going down to the earlier grades may come as a result of seeing whether that is
Right.
actually moving or whether it is not.
Precisely because of what you've been asking about with TWE all the time, and that being a different issue because it's a different pathway to get to the high school. That's what kind of resolved it for me when I was thinking about it was you've got to say first and foremost, okay, we've got, 10% of our students are engaged with these advanced language courses in high school. So, that's whatever, 250 students, right? And then the next year we look at it and it's 230 students, then I would expect that the administration is looking at where are those students coming from? Is it TWE? Is it the international school? Is it students that are highly motivated out of middle school through their limited experience to world languages there? And then what do we need to do programmatically to increase and get back above 10%, maybe to 12% or whatever at the high school level? But I think you got to start by knowing what the output is first.
Right. I would just add that I think these are reasonable and the language is reasonable. I just would imagine when seeing the data that I would want it to show us like you're describing. So for example, with STAMP, we'd have to have the data broken down to know, what percentage of the students who hit that proficiency early in high school were because they were in dual language immersion, because obviously that is a different situation than someone starting if we're trying to see growth over time. I mean, I guess we could start because we know that's reaching ninth grade in the fall. We could start that, and then you're measuring year after year, a certain percentage of that is because those students have already attained that or come in high school with that. How much growth is happening outside of that, I guess.
I think you'd
be able
see
to
that
know
in the STAMP data, whether it's proficient or
Yes.
distinguished or what those levels are. I wouldn't be concerned with that data. I would be more concerned with the total number of enrollments at each step along the way. But that's just me. And that's a different discussion than what we have here.
So I
Yeah,
think,
based on the indicators that we have in front of us, I think the indicators are a very reasonable starting point, especially for this point of the process. And indicators they may become more distilled over time, especially as we see what data.
I would agree. I think it's reasonable to start here.
Do we want to vote on world languages or do we want to vote at the end? We have a motion and a second for all policies as one.
I think we should vote on them individually. So if we're done with this one, I think we should vote on this one.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, all in favor of approving our 2.2.2, move with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
There we go.
Okay. We
Voice
have-
from on high.
We have our 2.2.2 has passed, has been approved as presented. Okay. So can we move to? Yes, our 2.2.3, creative and performing arts. Okay, any comments?
I think in future years, it might be useful to ask questions about the linkages between these academic results and then whatever I was referencing earlier with extracurriculars, because there's probably a fairly strong correlation there between the two. But again, I don't know that it's appropriate now. And it is reasonable now, just get the baseline data.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I agree. I think it's reasonable and we'll go from there.
Anyone have a different opinion? If not, all in favor of approving 2.2.3 as presented, signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 2.2.3 has been approved. Okay, let's move on to health and physical education, 2.2.4. Any comments from the board? Okay, I'm hearing none. Oh, go ahead, John.
I just want to reiterate something I said earlier. I know that it's been said, we don't need to discuss it, but I am very eager to get into middle school.
I think that's a
Yeah.
fair, a fair comment, and I think that the rationale for why it's not an indicator makes a lot of
Yep.
sense too. So I think that's the tension of setting the good groundwork and us wanting to jump ahead. So I'm glad we need to get the good groundwork.
Well,
Any
just to
other-
reiterate, I think what we've been alluding to is even if it's not an indicator, it's not, that there's not data being kept
Right.
at that level, right? So is this a reasonable enough set of information that we can have as a board to gauge the progress and capacity building, knowing that there's data collection more fully, that there's processes being built more fully, that, you know, processes don't belong here. So I feel confident in that piece too.
Any other comments? Nicole?
I'm good.
Alright, hearing none, all in favor of approving 2.2.4 as presented, signify with aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? And 2.2.4 has been approved as presented. Okay. 2.3, technology. Any comments, discussion from the board on this one? I feel like we.
I would
discussed
just-
the in depth, I think, I think Joe, you had some really good comments from this. And also, John, I appreciated how you kind of highlighted the, analogy between technology access and is that comparable to world language access? So I feel very comfortable with our indicators for technology. Just based on.
Yeah, I was going to second that, Meredith, and I just wanted to thank our administrators for including internet access because it's a monumental piece of this equitable ability to develop this skill. So I'm super appreciative and grateful that that was brought into indicators because it's a huge barrier to entry. So thank you for bringing that and adding it to this.
Can I just make a comment
Of course.
that is petty and probably late, but it just hurts my eyes a little bit that this bullet point is technologically fluent instead of technological fluency, because the way that it fits with the other bullet points, sorry, I'm just drives me nuts. I'm just going to say it out loud here. Should read each one in a sentence. Technological fluency is anyway. I know it's petty,
You didn't say it now.
right?
Keep thinking about it. for a whole
I will
week.
not forever be holding my peace.
I don't know that we were concerned about that.
Yeah, I know.
But we appreciate the comments.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this one? All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving 2.3, signify with aye.
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 Any opposed? 2.3 has passed, has been approved as presented. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much to our administrators too for the work in setting these. This is a good job with capacity building. We really do appreciate the ground level work because this is how we are going to move the needle for student achievement. And I appreciate that you brought it back to the students at each time. So, and thank you, board, for going through this. We are excited to jump ahead and start reviewing them. So we'll give you some time. Yeah.
So just really, first, thank you, Board of Education, for a very thorough conversation, good questions that helped us reflect. I wanted to just lift up one piece of it, and I feel so just an assurance that as a former middle school principal, that the middle school will never be forgotten in our work. And I understand that we need to make sure that it resonates beyond the verbiage coming out of our mouths. But we are committed to that work. I also, when we have the opportunity, as I heard a lot of questions about the middle school experience and world language during the world language piece of it. If you get a chance, please go back to the leadership letter from May 23rd, where we talked about some potential discrepancies in our middle school experience for world language and how that impacted some of the decision making from our team. If you don't have two exact experiences, it's very difficult to have that be your indicator. So we called out in May that that's the issue. Have the plan to fix the issue. It's on its way, and you'll see a more accurate reflection when we have balanced programs in both locations.
And just as a reminder, all leadership letters are in a shared drive for board members, so everyone should have access to that. I think I shared it out to everyone a while back, but I will check to make sure everyone's able to access them.
So yeah, it was the week, we always do the week of, so it was a week of May 23rd. So that means it would have gone out on the 26th for if you're just doing an email search.
Okay, well, thank you. With that, we have any public comments? Okay, we can move on to the superintendent's consent agenda. Are there any questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, superintendent's consent agenda. We're supposed to mention what to, before we approve, take a moment. Dr. Hawkins, turn it over.
Oh, good evening again. So tonight I have the pleasure of just sharing a little bit of information about our new Director of Multilingual Programs. Her name is Rose Maria Larson, and she is coming to us with over 14 years of experience as a bilingual educator here in Wisconsin. Her experience spans working in several Wisconsin school districts in roles such as an ELL teacher, a bilingual reading specialist, which I might add is sometimes difficult to come across in Wisconsin, a person who has experience in reading as a specialist and has that endorsement, but is also bilingual and is currently serving as a biliteracy instructional leadership coordinator in Beloit. She's watching us now, so she does extend her greetings to you all. She's going to start with us August the 8th, and her onboarding will include lots of opportunities to meet with families and our staff. We're being very intentional at providing opportunities for her to meet with our staff, to answer questions, share her vision for the department and the programs. More importantly, she's really excited and wanting to listen and learn more about our district and what she can add to it. She's also going to spend time visiting the school sites, meeting with principals, really digging into our current TWE programming as well as bilingual programs. She's also spent a great deal of time in Delavan and some of our other neighboring districts that have two-way immersion programs. So she brings with her a wide variety or a host of experiences in other districts with their two-way immersion programs. She is, as she said, excited to join us and looking forward to a long journey in Verona.
Well, we are excited to have her and welcome her to the ASC team. This is a key position with the importance of our two-way. So we're very excited that she'll be joining us. So we welcome her to the team. Thank you very much for giving us an update on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins.
Thank you. Okay, any questions about the superintendent's consent agenda? Hearing none, it is approved as presented. Next up is the board consent agenda. Any questions on the board consent agenda? Hearing none, it is also approved as presented. Let's take a look at future agenda items. I think one of the things that we wanted to touch base on is a possible workshop. Do we have a head count for the 13th? August 13th?
I don't think we're at quorum there, so we may need a new date.
Okay.
Oh,
One of the dates that we had thrown out was maybe Monday, the 29th. We don't have a board meeting that night.
What is this for?
This is for the, do you want to give an overview? It's for the data.
It's for the culture and climate data that from the surveys that we sent out last spring. We have wanted to do a full report or have the board and go deeper into the results from those from those surveys. Remember, there will be a board report on that on the 1st or 15th. Yeah, the board, the 15th. So you will have a report to the board on the 15th, but we anticipated there would be questions that you might want to go deeper in. And so we were providing a review or workshop to go deeper into the survey results.
So you're suggesting the 29th instead of the 13th?
Well, if the 13th, it doesn't sound like the 13th, just from the show of hands, who's able to get on the 13th here? I mean, I don't think we don't have a quorum, then ideally we would be able to go through the data before the presentation, just so we can get all our, our questions asked, and we're not asking in-depth in the weeds questions during, board meetings. We want to make sure that we have enough time for the board to go through. But barring the 13th, then I think we have to look after the 15th, and we have the original presentation. And I think one of the days that we were talking about was potentially using Monday, the 29th. Just tend to keep our Mondays a little bit more open. We don't have a board meeting that night because of the way Mondays fall in August. And then we don't have a board meeting the next Monday either because of Labor Day. So the 29th would kind of keep us on an every other week schedule. But again, we have to balance that we're going to have partial information and we'll have 2 weeks to wait until it gets deeper into it, which I think is preferable than not having the time carved out. But we need to see if the 29th works.
So we can
Yes.
Yes.
is that what you're, I mean?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll-
Yes.
I'll throw it
Yes.
together. Yes.
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 Jen, 29th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Jen, 29th?
I believe so, yes.
Nicole?
I'm a tentative yes.
Well, it sounds like we would have a quorum regardless. So let's put the 29th on the calendar for a data workshop. It will be just a informal.
we usually go a little earlier on workshops. 5 o'clock work for everybody. You need to go to 6.
Five's fine.
Okay.
Yep, 5, okay. 5 o'clock on the 29th. That sounds great. So then let's keep that in mind when we're hearing the presentation on the 15th, that anything that's really like in-depth data analysis we can kind of move to the workshop. That was also identified topics that we really want to hit on the workshop date. Also remember next week is our annual meeting. We're here at 5 o'clock next week for the annual meeting, and then we'll to our regular board meeting after that at 6. Then we have a regular board meeting on the 15th. All tech convocation on the 25th at 9. Pending some changes to formatting, but okay, nope,
It's all gonna be great.
it's all good. Our next regular board meeting after that
Should be
will
September 12th
September 12th.
is the Monday,
All right,
I
September
believe,
12th,
right? Yes.
and then
And then the 26th is correct.
and then the
Yeah.
26th. Okay, and then also get on your calendars, the 29th, August 29th for a workshop. 5 o'clock. I also saw that WASB is having their regional meetings, and I think our regional meeting is 29th of September, so I know that won't work for some of us, but it's in Middleton, so if anyone is interested in doing a WASB regional meeting, just that's it. Is there anything else on the board side? Nope. Okay, with that, we can do kind of a soft adjournment, and if we want to do a board debrief, after that, we can do that. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you to our audience. Literally a captive audience. Getting us back.
If you guys are talking, I can't hear you.
She just said she can't hear us.
Oh,
Okay.
I can
sorry.
hear you
Okay.
now.
Okay, Nicole, why don't you start with board debrief? Something that went well, something we could improve on, or just general comments?
Yeah, I think what went well was I think we took the time to go in depth on the policies, and thank you for everyone who dealt with my delay and were deferring so that I could ask my questions. You're also polite. I think maybe something that we could work on, I don't know, I always feel like maybe we could be more succinct on points and just kind of get to the vote part, but I also don't ever want to cheat anybody out of their comments. Good night. So yeah, I don't know. I think everybody had really good questions, and I really appreciate the administrators in answering all of our very interested questions.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, who's next?
I'll go next.
Thanks.
I would agree with Nicole. I think we had a very efficient meeting. And I feel like we were all prepared for the meeting, and so it flowed really well. Like, people knew what their questions were. And I mean, I felt like it was efficient. So I don't have anything that we could do. I guess the only thing I would say we could do better is when we have virtual people, like, just pause a little bit longer. But we just don't know if, like, they have nothing or if they can't hear. But on the other side, you're like, oh, I'm interrupting, but no, I'm not, but maybe I am. So it's just kind of hard on the other side because there's like a slight delay.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you. John, are you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna call myself out for not being entirely prepared because I don't have my booklet with me, which I could have referenced to know that we'd already covered extracurriculars another time. So that was bad.
Keep in mind.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of the mini booklet. And
I think after a year of doing this, like only a year, when we've had so many policies, I think that's understandable.
I'm never gonna have it all the way down, just the way my memory works. So I should really get in the habit of bringing the book. But yeah, I think we did a good job of asking questions, and all of us thinking about things a little bit differently and coming at it really helped kind of build some ideas into it. So yeah, I thought I did a pretty good job of that. I continue to like this meeting structure because I feel like we get to dive into things. I feel like we could do more of, like connecting those policies a little bit better, just as an informational thing for anybody who is watching, and also really trying to get at the why things are the way they are, so that people are watching, they can understand the intentionality that we're trying to get out of things, and I think that helps clear up any misconceptions. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I feel like we're getting good at these policies. It's a lot more efficient now. And I know that for myself because the 5 questions or something I had coming in to tonight, 4 of them got asked by someone else before I even had the chance. So I was unusually quiet, but that was only because you all asked the same questions I was going to ask. So.
I think that's a good point. It doesn't feel so clunky, the process.
Yeah.
From the board perspective of navigating through it. Go ahead.
I was gonna have a similar sentiment, but maybe that with gratitude or just for the work the admin team is doing, I think that consistency is because the team behind this work is consistent. So as they have also built capacity around how to process the work from their perspective, then that comes to us in a consistent way. So I think it's the full pull through that is making the process feel more seamless.
It's not us.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying, that we should not take full credit for the.
And that is a good point. I had that same thought that a lot of these, we've already had discussions over some of the language or the structure in
Yeah,
these
or the
policies.
semantics or
that we didn't have to
wordsmithing
do it
or
again.
Getting
Yeah.
beyond
think
that, so.
I think,
Yeah.
I think that's, it's a great, I appreciate that. And again, I think that just goes to the gratitude to the administration. for,
Yeah.
Bringing such, well thought out results, policies, indicators and interpretations. So very, very grateful for all that goes into each of these. So, okay, with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion from Jen, do I have a second? Oh, Christina.
No, I didn't go, but
It's because we went all weird.
yeah, no, it's fine because most of my thoughts were echoed. I guess the only thing I would say is that when we're at this level of capacity building, sometimes it's really hard not to be impatient and want to measure things that are like, would be in the future. So I find myself like thinking, oh, like I'd love to know how many kids are learning coding and are we increasing that? But then I'm like, okay, that'll come in the future. Like I have to remind myself. And I mean, the administration staff is doing a great job of establishing a baseline for capacity. I'm sure it's also some, they probably are eager to move forward too, but it's something we have to do. So I just remind myself in my head, like those things will be in the future. And at some point, we'll see some of those other, measures or indicators that we would love to see today, but we have to kind of just be patient.
I think that
So-
speaks to the board
Yeah.
finding its role and staying in its role through this process. And I think that's a good point, because we're gonna jump
Yeah.
ahead. but we
Yeah,
need
and it's
to
not,
pay
I
attention.
hope it's never seen as us being critical, because I don't think we're trying to be critical of the staff work. It's just eagerness, right? It's just eagerness to want to know, like, how are we growing in those areas? So I just remind myself, like, it'll come, with time, it'll come.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Okay, so I had a motion to adjourn from Jen. Did I have a second?
Second.
Second from Joe. All right, all in favor, signify with aye.
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 We are officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, everyone.